I've grown quite worried about the trajectory of what humans perceive as strength, not only in entertainment media, but even in influencers and perceived role models. This is a steady decline that has been gradually moving towards shaping the very definition of strength. For me, this is actually quite a fascinating topic because of how blind a lot of people are to what is actually happening, almost as though they know the counterfeit better than the genuine. What do I mean by this? There is an interesting phenomenon called perceptual expertise that I'll use as an illustration. Anyone who handles cash on a constant basis, especially in a profession, gain an incredible ability to easily identify counterfeits. Now, something I find insane about this phenomenon is that it isn't actually taught. It is grown through exposure. Bank tellers and cashiers handle genuine banknotes all day. This constant, repeated exposure allows them to develop an intuitive sense of what feels right. The texture, color, weight, print clarity, and even embedded features of real currency. Over time, they build this mental prototype or baseline of what authentic notes look like. So when a counterfeit does come along, it stands out. Not necessarily because the cashier knows exactly what's wrong, but because it doesn't match the baseline they've naturally internalized. Their brain subconsciously flags it as unfamiliar or off. Now, you could probably see where I'm going with this. I believe that a lot of modern writers and influencers are more exposed to a counterfeit strength than they are to actual genuine strength. So to them, genuine strength is foreign, and they probably even see it as weakness. Unfortunately, it also seems like this is slowly becoming the norm. Before I dive into what this modern depiction of strength is, let's look at what genuine strength has always looked like. Throughout history, we see that strength has often been defined as the capacity to endure, to act with integrity under pressure, and to choose what is right even when it costs you. It is a moral and emotional resilience, not the absence of struggle, but the decision to face it. It is also force and power under control. Marcus Aurelius put it this way: you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. Strength isn't about control over people or circumstances. It's about self-mastery. The ability to stay steady when everything else is shaking. The power to respond instead of react. To remain grounded when your pride wants to escalate. And in a world that tells you to be loud, aggressive, or performative, Marcus flips it. Real strength isn't about bending the world to your will. It's about mastering yourself in the middle of it. This is a fundamental understanding that everyone has had about strength for a very long time. There are so many clear examples of games, series, and movies over the last 20 to 30 years of genuine strength. But it feels like there is a shift happening. Some of our favorite characters in the past, whether real or fictional, those who have had a very deep understanding of what genuine strength looks like, wouldn't necessarily even exist nowadays. And if they did exist, they would either be gender swapped or race swapped, or even be made to look pathetic where possible. And the characters that replace them or take their throne are so poorly written that it blows my mind how they even exist. Unfortunately, a lot of modern writers simply don't understand genuine strength. Classical writers like J.R.R. Tolkien knew what genuine strength was. They knew that strength has a cost, that it takes something out of you. It doesn't leave you untouched, it leaves scars. It humbles you, it makes you even quieter. And that's the irony. The strongest people are usually the ones that don't even talk about how great or strong they are, because they've lived it, they've bled for it, and they know it's not a show. This kind of strength isn't taught. It's shaped over time, in moments of choosing silence, restraint, and endurance. It's taught through exposure. It's always incredible and actually somewhat beautiful to see characters and people who suffer or struggle still choose to do good. That's the strength that moves people. That's the strength that transforms people. But this is disappearing. Or worse, it's being replaced by a counterfeit. What is it being replaced by? Narcissism. What we're calling strength today is often just narcissism in disguise. It's not rooted in sacrifice or humility. It's about ego, attention, and the desperate need to be admired without being challenged. Modern characters, and let's be honest, many public figures too, aren't strong because they overcome anything. They're strong because the script says so, or because they say so. They don't earn our respect, they demand it. They don't grow, they're written to be right from the start. They're never wrong, never vulnerable, never in doubt. And if they are, it's used for 5 seconds of forced relatability before they're back to monologuing about how misunderstood they are. This isn't strength. It's self-worship. You see this constantly. Characters who bulldoze through others emotionally, who never listen, who never compromise, and we're told this is empowerment. But being impossible to work with doesn't make you powerful. It just makes you insufferable. Strength has been reduced to this kind of moral untouchability, a person who can't be questioned, corrected, or critiqued because they are the representation of some broader ideal. But this is dangerous, because it teaches audiences, especially young ones, that personal growth isn't necessary, that virtue is a given, that the world should revolve around you because you're the main character. This obsession with self has hollowed out the archetype of the hero. We used to cheer for really good characters because they gave something up. Now we're just told to cheer because they represent some kind of demographic. The worst part? Most of the audience feels the difference. They don't always know how to articulate it, but they know something is off. These new, strong characters feel empty. Their victories don't move us. Their pain doesn't shake us. Because deep down, we know strength without selflessness, sacrifice, or love isn't strength at all. It's narcissism. Now, the problem goes deeper than just poor writing. There's now a dangerous trend that if you don't like certain modern characters or even influencers, it's your fault. You are the issue. You are sexist, you are racist, you are homophobic, or you are even transphobic. And this shuts down any honest conversation before it even begins. This is a huge part of why things aren't actually getting better. Because now, identity is being used as a shield. Writers don't have to build strong characters. They just have to build important ones. Characters who can't be criticized because of what they represent, not who they actually are. It's lazy, and more than that, it's disrespectful, both to the audience and to the very groups these characters are supposed to speak for. Because real representation means giving those characters the same depth, struggle, and growth as anyone else, not making them untouchable, narcissistic brats that demand to be liked. You can't just hand a character a specific shielded identity and a crazy ego and call it strength. That's not how storytelling works. That's not how respect works. And that's not how truth works. One of the more recent examples for this is in the trailer for Intergalactic: The Heretic Prophet. In a short 4.5-minute trailer, Naughty Dog somehow managed to create an insanely unlikable character who instantly comes across as extremely arrogant and narcissistic. And yet, they genuinely believe this character is above any criticism simply because of her race and identity. As soon as anyone calls her out as a poorly written character, the blame is flipped onto the viewer, labeling the viewer as racist or homophobic. But it has nothing to do with the race or identity of the protagonist. She simply comes across as unlikable. Now, here's where things also get a little bit complicated. I genuinely believe that characters like this are only unlikable to those who have been exposed to genuine strength in their lives. And I can actually see how this sort of character could be likable to those who have not been exposed to genuine strength in their lives. I personally believe that fatherless homes or abusive experiences from individuals that are supposed to represent strength in our lives can create an exposure of counterfeit strength. Obviously, life is nuanced, and I personally know quite a few people who have been exposed throughout their lives to this counterfeit strength that do have a healthy view of strength now. But when you grow up without a model of earned, quiet, or steady strength, you can easily mistake loudness for confidence, control for leadership, and arrogance for self-assurance. And so a character who steamrolls over others, never listens, never bends, and acts like the world owes them something might actually look strong to someone who's only ever seen power used that way. Making characters like this completely alienates audiences, not because we're hateful or closed-minded, but because we're being told to cheer for characters that are poorly written but guilt-wrapped in a protected identity. And if we don't celebrate these characters, we get labeled and called out. But that's not strength. That's trauma with a label on it. And that's the danger. When culture starts celebrating unhealed wounds as empowerment, when fiction becomes a mirror of brokenness rather than a picture of what wholeness could look like, we stop aiming upwards and we start settling. We start calling dysfunction power, not because it is, but because it's all some people have ever known. You can see this play out in real life. Take someone you believe to have narcissistic qualities, whether a public figure or someone in your personal life. They They could be popular, charismatic, and quick-witted, sure. But what you're really witnessing more often than not is just ego dressed as strength. They rarely or never admit when they're wrong. They often talk over others and position themselves as the smartest in the room without actually doing the harder work of listening, learning, or sacrificing. That's not strength. That's a performance of a false perception of strength. And for a lot of young people, especially those without real mentors, that kind of performance can be convincing. Because if you've never or rarely seen genuine strength in your life, the kind that leads by example, that serves others, that admits failure, that shows genuine humility, then the counterfeit could look strong. C.S. Lewis once said, "We make men without chests and expect them virtue and enterprise. We laugh at honor and are shocked to find traitors in our midst." In other words, we strip away the soul of real strength, the virtue, the responsibility, the self-mastery. We laugh and mock the real thing when it is displayed, and then we're surprised when the people we elevate as heroes don't act like heroes at all. When we confuse narcissism for strength, we don't just warp our stories, we warp our expectations of ourselves and each other. People start performing instead of growing. They protect their image instead of building character. They become addicted to being right instead of learning how to be wise. And the worst part, they start to believe that vulnerability is weakness, that empathy is a flaw, that asking for help is a failure. Real strength doesn't need to be loud. It doesn't need applause. It doesn't need a platform. It grows in silence through trial. It's something you become, not something you declare. So the question becomes, what kind of strength are we trying to build in ourselves? And what kind of strength are we celebrating in others? Because if we don't know the difference, we'll keep clapping for the counterfeits while the real thing quietly slips away. So let's come back to the real thing. Real strength is not perfection. It's not dominance. It's not being the loudest person in the room or the most unshakable or unteachable in the spotlight. It's the man who stands alone for what is right, even when it costs him everything. It's the woman who forgives what the world says is unforgivable. It's even the leader who kneels before they command. It's not found in applause, it's found in sacrifice. Look at historical figures such as Nelson Mandela, who grew up under the apartheid, imprisoned for 27 years, and instead of coming out bitter and vengeful, he led a nation towards healing and reconciliation. That's strength. Look at Corrie ten Boom, a woman who lost everything in the Holocaust, including her sister, and yet she chose to forgive the man who was responsible. That is strength. Look at Martin Luther King Jr., who faced death threats, violence, and prison, yet he met hatred with peace and injustice with love. That's strength. And finally, look at Jesus. Whether you believe in him or not, there is no figure in history who better embodies strength through sacrifice. He had power, authority, a following, and yet chose the path of suffering. He didn't destroy his enemies, he forgave them. He didn't demand loyalty, he washed feet. He didn't save himself, he gave himself. And in doing so, redefined strength not as dominance, but as self-giving love. Real strength isn't about appearing invincible. It's about remaining faithful, honest, and loving even when you feel broken, especially when you feel broken. These people didn't become strong by demanding the world revolve around them. They became strong by laying something down, their comfort, their ego, their vengeance, and their lives, for the sake of something or someone greater. So maybe it's time we relearn what strength actually is. It's not the power to dominate. It's the courage to endure, the humility to grow, the grace to forgive, the wisdom to wait, and the character to keep going, especially when no one is watching. Thank you guys for watching this video, and thank you so much to my Patreons for supporting me. I'm back on the ball with YouTube again, and I'm going to be producing a lot more videos a lot quicker going forward. This is just my perspective. It is a angle. It's not the whole picture of why I believe it is a thing, but I genuinely think that there is a bit of a decline in the idea of strength at the moment. If you agree or disagree with me, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. Let's keep it respectable again, and thank you guys so much for all the support, and I'll catch you in the next one.